much for joining us. Could be on the FM AM dial, of course, KSHP. You could be on the Occupy Democrats Network, the Washington Press. So many different avenues where you could watch and listen to this show, and I appreciate all of you being a part of what we do here, man. It's a fast-growing show, and one of the fastest-growing shows out there, man, and I'm really humbled. And love all of you for joining me, even my special MAGA supporters, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very special guest coming up at the bottom of the hour. You know him as the Mooch. Yes, that's right. He was the press secretary for Donald Trump. He didn't last very long. Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, will be joining us. And he's said publicly on this show that he plans on campaigning for Joe Biden. So we have a lot to get to with the Mooch, and we're going to preview the hush money trial, first trial of any former president, and it's going to be Monday in New York. So we know that's going to be must-watch TV, even though my understanding there's going to be no camera in there. But it's certainly going to be interesting, and we're going to get a preview, and we're going to talk to the Mooch about that. On a side note, I do want to talk to Mooch, too, about Dave Portnoy. He's in some social media colliding, I guess, with Portnoy. It has something to do with family members, so we'll talk to him a little bit about that, too. But the Mooch, always opinionated, always love and appreciate his opinions and respect him a great deal. He'll be joining us at the bottom of the hour. Also, a little bit later on in the program, I'll be honest with all of you, and this might help you as well, especially lately, the last couple weeks. I've just had it with some of these loyal Trump supporters, right? I'm always open to hearing people share different opinions. That's okay. But my problem is with some of these MAGA supporters that think he's the next Messiah, right? I really struggle with it. So I figured, all right, I need a little bit of maybe some psychoanalyzing and maybe some life coaching. So Nicole Mitchell is going to be joining us in hour number 2. She is a former pastor coming from a right-wing evangelical family, now turned life coach. And we're going to do some live, on-the-air life coaching, not just for me, but for some of you as well. How do you deal with the MAGA world? How do you deal with certain people that are so ignorant that you can't even have a conversation with them at any intellectual level? If it bothers you as much as it definitely bothers me, she's going to be giving us some advice, how to deal with this, how to deal with this in life, deal with these kinds of people. So that'll be coming up in hour number 2. So I haven't really talked about policing much on this show lately. I mean, the last time I really got into policing and law enforcement, the Uvalde shooting, of course, George Floyd. And, of course, I also commend officers who, most of them are heroes and risk their lives every day. We had a shooting here at UNLV where several people lost their lives. And 2 officers are heroes, and they saved countless lives by taking down the shooter. And I try to point out great policing as well as bad policing, right? But most officers, I think we all could agree, are good people. They risk their lives every day. Most, obviously not all. But there's 2 sides of this equation, because we have this officer-involved shooting where an African-American male was shot and killed. I'm going to get to that in a moment because I think that was actually good policing. We'll get to that. So there's 2 different national stories in the last several days that have gone public. One of which is the Dexter Reed shooting, which we will get to. It's the shooting in Chicago where Dexter Reed was shot multiple times and died. But now there's new body camera footage coming out showing a Texas man by the name of Kenneth Knotts who was having a mental breakdown. He didn't have any weapons on him. He wasn't threatening police officers. He was hyperventilating. He was put in handcuffs, and he was having a mental breakdown. I mean, the video clearly shows that. And in this video, and I'm going to play you, obviously you can only hear the audio. I'm going to play it for you. He says, "I can't breathe," before dying in police custody. They put him on his stomach. Now, nobody put a knee on his neck. Nobody did any of the types of things that those officers did in Minneapolis, like Derek Chauvin. That was murder. We know that. But when somebody is handcuffed, and clearly they're having some sort of mental issue, mental breakdown, and they say, "I can't breathe and I need water," should we be surprised that that person passed away and died? I'm going to play you this audio. In my opinion, this is very, very bad policing. Have a listen to this.
Hey, hold him there. Let's put a single pair on it. Sit up.
Oh, God.
He's taking the cuffs off,
I
man.
want water.
Quit. Sit down. Right.
I need water.
You just got some.
That isn't enough.
God's sake.
Don't do it. Stop. Let go of my hand. Let go.
Let go of her hand.
Kenneth, you gotta relax a little bit. We can't do anything until you're.
Throw him behind you. Throw him on the floor. Kenneth, stop.
Stop.
Justin, you ain't going.
So that's difficult to hear, right? Because you have somebody who's not a direct threat to police officers. He has no weapons on him. Can you say, well, he's not complying? Yeah, he's struggling with officers a little bit. He's not striking officers. He's handcuffed, by the way. And you can see clearly this is somebody with mental issues that is having a mental breakdown. It's one thing when you don't comply in other situations. I'll get to that. But this is a situation where a guy's not a threat to officers. Clearly, he's not mentally well. He's having a little bit of a breakdown. And then what happens? He's put in a semi-prone position on his stomach when he says clearly, I can't breathe. The medical examiner ruled Knotts died of cardiac arrest after being put in a semi-prone position, ruled a homicide. But here's what gets even worse. Not one officer was indicted. You might be saying to me, well, Brian, what did officers do wrong? Well, I will tell you. When somebody is not a threat to officers and they are handcuffed, there is no reason. When somebody is saying that they cannot breathe, and I've talked to officers about this, when somebody is saying they can't breathe, and clearly they're struggling, he was struggling to breathe, you could see it. The guy was having a mental breakdown. He was freaking out. He wasn't hurting anybody, but he was freaking out. And then they put him in a position where it makes it even more difficult for that person to breathe. And he died. It's a tragedy. And his family had spoken out saying, yes, he had some mental issues. He was suffering inside. Don't put somebody in that position when they can't breathe. And nobody was indicted. Am I saying this was intentional? Am I saying it rises to the level of what Derek Chauvin did? No, of course I'm not saying that. But there has to be some sort of accountability here when officers screw up big time. And I think they screwed up big time here. This man died. He shouldn't have died. He shouldn't have been put in the position that he was in. And if some of you want to say, well, he made his own bed, he did it to himself, the guy was already handcuffed. There are certain protocols put in place. When somebody is handcuffed and they say, I can't breathe, you don't put them on their stomach. You sit them up. You try to calm them down. Would it have been horrible if they got this guy more water? He was asking for more water. Would that have been terrible? I understand. You want to keep him in handcuffs. I get that. Don't lie him on his side on his stomach. The coroner, again, ruled this to be a homicide. How could it be a homicide if nobody was indicted? This is bad policing, and somebody should be held accountable. But then we go to the other side of the coin. Let's flip it, because I try to be fair on this show. And this story of Dexter Reed is pissing me off. It's a story of a young man who was pulled over by an unmarked police vehicle with, I believe, 5 or 6 officers inside this vehicle because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Okay? No big deal. Cite him, give him a ticket. It's done, right? No problems. Well, that's not how it went down. Because as you see the body camera footage, he refuses to roll down his window. He doesn't comply. He locks his door as the police officer's trying to open the door. And then moments later, and this is proven, Dexter Reed takes out his gun and starts shooting at officers first. I'm going to play you the audio and then the misconceptions by the media and Dexter's own family, and we are going to play you that as well. This is difficult to hear because a young man does lose his life. An officer was shot, recovered, but this is what it sounded like. Have a listen to this.
Roll the windows down.
Roll the window down, man.
Roll the window down. What are you doing?
Roll this one down.
Roll that one down too.
This one down.
Hey, don't roll the window up. Don't roll the window up.
Okay.
Do not roll the window up. Unlock the doors now. Unlock the doors now. Unlock the doors now. Open the door now. Open the door now. Open the door now. 1164 David, shots fired, shots fired. Hey! Hey! Shots fired. Ferdinand Avers, 10-1, 10-1.
So that is very difficult to hear, right? You have a young man who loses his life. But, and this has nothing to do with this man's criminal past, just like George Floyd. I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on the facts of what took place. And it's very, very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very simple. Dexter Reed did an extremely stupid thing if you want to get killed. He decided on a normal traffic stop, and this was very normal. They pulled him over because he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. 99% of people in this country, if they're pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt, they'll show their ID, they'll comply, they'll get cited, sometimes maybe even not cited. They'll get a warning. Maybe they won't even get a ticket. The whole thing lasts 5 minutes, and you move on. For whatever reason, Dexter Reed was extremely stupid, and it cost him his life. In fact, I would say more than stupid. He took out his weapon, and this has been proven, and he shot his weapon at officers, striking one officer, and shot at officers 8 times. Now, let me be very clear on this. For those of you that disagree with me, if you're dumb enough, and this is my personal opinion, if you're dumb enough to take out your weapon and shoot at a cop, you deserve to die. I don't care if cops shoot at you 10 times or 1,000 times. They have the right to use deadly force. They did use deadly force, and this guy is dead not because of police officers, but because of him, because he did something extremely stupid and criminal. Even if you point a gun at an officer, you probably deserve to die. He shot at officers. He struck an officer. But some people are saying that this has something to do with race. Are you effing kidding me? Are you kidding me? Can it be more clear than this? People say, oh, officer shot at him 90 times. Yeah, so what? He tried to get out of his vehicle after being shot, and I would imagine tried to run away. Now, he was shot a number of times, dead on the scene. He shot at cops. What more do you want? Now, listen, I have a lot of sympathy for his family. What his mother is going through, she didn't do anything wrong. What his family members are going through, they didn't do anything wrong. It's not their fault. They're grieving. I get it. So I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to attack his mother. But I'm going to say she's wrong. This is Dexter Reed's mom at a press conference. And again, I understand she's grieving. I have sympathy for her. It's horrible, right? It's a terrible circumstance. But this is Dexter Reed's mom in a press conference. Listen to what she had to say.
He had just bought his new car 3 days before that. And he was just riding around in his car. He said, Mom, going for a ride. And they killed him.
Okay, so again, I feel for his mother. She's grieving. It's horrible. She didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't just driving around in his car. They didn't just decide to kill an innocent black man. That's not the case here. I try to call it like it is on this show. You know, I was just talking about the Kenneth Knotts case. That was homicide. Somebody should be held accountable for that. They did not murder an innocent man. That's exactly not what took place. And again, I preface it by saying this. The mother is grieving. I feel for her. My heart goes out to her. No mother should ever have to bury their child. This is terrible. This was not anybody else's fault but your son. And I know she doesn't want to hear that now. She's grieving. Maybe down the road she'll come to terms with that. Maybe not. I don't know. I feel for her. Your son is not innocent in this. Your son buried himself. I know some people don't want to hear this. This is what the sounds outside the police department sounded like. Obviously, these are ignorant people that don't understand the facts in this case, but they were protesting outside the police department. If you want to protest about something, you have the right to do so, but how about protesting for something that is actually real, that is factually accurate? You want to protest George Floyd? Go ahead. He was murdered. This young man was not murdered. He killed himself, but this is what it sounded like outside the local police department and the protesters out there. Have a listen to this. Okay, so you get the gist of that. Again, these people are not very intelligent. They have the right to peacefully protest. They have that right. They're not very smart. What do you mean no justice, no peace? I would ask those people, what do you expect police officers to do when somebody takes out a gun and starts shooting at them? Not shoot back? Like, I don't understand what the logic is. The evidence is overwhelming. You can see who shoots first. You can hear it. You can see it. An officer was shot. They found the gun in the passenger seat of the car, and that's exactly the gun that was used. There's bullet holes. There's evidence. There's proof. What do you mean no justice, no peace in this case? What are you talking about? What are you trying to claim? That the police officers here committed murder? That's absurd. Pick your spots, man. Derek Chauvin is a murderer. George Floyd was murdered. How do we know this? Well, besides a jury of his peers finding him guilty with several other officers based on the evidence. George Floyd was on his stomach, his hands behind his back handcuffed. He wasn't going anywhere, and he said he couldn't breathe. And what did Derek Chauvin do? He kept his knee on George Floyd's neck for upwards of 8 minutes, and that contributed to his death. That was murder. And I talked about that endlessly. It doesn't mean I condone violent protest. That was wrong. Anybody who commits a violent act, anybody who attacks a police officer, anybody who burns a building on fire, I don't condone any of that behavior. I'm saying the protest, those who were not violent, totally justified, and Derek Chauvin is justified in being a murderer. These cops were doing their job. I don't understand it. You know, I go back to Ferguson. I get the systemic racism. I am pro-police, and I am also pro-Black Lives Matter movement. I don't support the organization. I support the movement. The movement, if you ask many, would be equality, against police brutality. What normal person would be against that? I'm also pro-police. I'd like to think that most police officers are decent human beings, and they are heroes. But the whole Ferguson situation was a farce. I'm sorry, it just was. Michael Brown deserved to be shot. I'm sorry, I know some people don't want to hear this. This is reality. There are innocent people, there are victims, and then there are criminals. Michael Brown was a criminal. The evidence was overwhelming that he attacked the police officer and went after his gun. How do we know this? Not just from physical evidence. We know this from actual witnesses that were there, both white and black people that were questioned. Eyewitnesses that said Michael Brown did not put his hands up and say, "Don't shoot." That was a farce. That didn't happen. It didn't happen. So we know that Michael Brown attacked a police officer first. It cost him his life. He charged at the cop. We know that from eyewitness testimony. So we need to go by evidence. We need to understand evidence in a case when there are witnesses that say Michael Brown was charging at the officer when he was shot. He wasn't shot in the back. There were black people that were there in Ferguson that saw everything, that testified under oath, that said Michael Brown was charging towards the officer when he was shot. So the idea that he was running away, or he was shot in his back, or both his hands were in the air is a lie. Didn't happen. You can believe what you want to believe, but I'm an evidence-based person. Derek Chauvin's a murderer. George Floyd was murdered. There are cases where there is a victim and the officers are murderers, absolutely. This case with Dexter Reed, not the case. The evidence is overwhelming. Dexter Reed pulled out his weapon. What do you expect police officers to do? I ask you this. What do you expect a police officer to do? What would you do if somebody takes out their gun and starts either points it at you or starts shooting at you and you have a gun on you? Forget about even if you're a cop. What do you do if you have a gun on you? Do you just stand there? No, you shoot back. And if I'm an officer, I'm going to keep shooting. I'm going to keep shooting. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand what you expect officers to do when somebody is shooting bullets at you. Like, I really don't get it. I never have and I never will. Again, I feel for his family. I really do. But in the other case I gave you, which is the Kenneth Knotts case, yeah, I believe officers are responsible for his death. I absolutely do. And the fact that the medical examiner ruled it a homicide and that nobody has been prosecuted, nobody has been charged, nobody has been indicted, it's despicable. It is despicable. When somebody is in handcuffs and they say they can't breathe, the last thing you should be doing is putting them on their side or on their stomach. That makes it more difficult for them to breathe. Ask any doctor. But here we are. Here we are in the Dexter Reed shooting where some people are saying race was a factor. Race is definitely a factor in plenty of cases that I talk about. This is not one of them. It doesn't matter if Dexter Reed was white, black, purple, orange. It doesn't matter. He took out a gun and he decided to shoot first at officers. Let me be very clear. That is a death wish, ladies and gentlemen. It's a death wish. Simply put. Try to take a couple quick calls before we go to break, and we have Anthony Scaramucci joining us at the bottom of the hour. 702-221-7283. Again, 702-221-SAVE, 702-221-7283. Let's go to Al. Al is first up on Pushing the Limits. What's going on, Al?
Hey, Brian. Hi. Good to hear you today. Hey, listen, I want to compliment you and your show today that you're calling balls and strikes. George Floyd was definitely murdered. The policeman was out of protocol. In this case, the citizen was out of protocol. Mm-hmm. And you're making that very clear to your show, which is a national show. And, I'm a big supporter of law enforcement here in Clark County. We have a very great police department. We have two coalitions, a Latino coalition, a black coalition. Law enforcement is reaching out to minorities. We're a very diverse community here. And I am really glad to hear that you're bringing credibility to your show by calling balls and strikes and knowing that sometimes the police is incorrect and sometimes the citizens are incorrect. And when the police is incorrect, they get thrown in jail, and they lose their
not
career.
Always, though.
And I'm glad you're pointing that out.
To be fair, though, not always. I gave the story of this Texas man.
Well, that's true.
Kenneth
No, that's
Knotts.
correct. Okay, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I just want accountability on both sides, and unfortunately, the medical examiner ruled Kenneth Knotts a homicide, put in a semi-prone position,
right.
And the grand jury declined to indict anyone. So I also think that that's wrong.
No, you're good on that one. I overstepped on that, but at least you're calling out protocol, and you're saying that if you get pulled over or something happens, both sides should follow the proper procedures.
Absolutely.
So that
absolutely
that's what you're.
Yeah. Thank you,
That's
Al.
what I think you're trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Al. Thank you for the phone call. 221-7283. Let's go to Tom. Tom is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hello, Tom.
Hey, Brian. It's Tom from Syracuse again.
How you doing, man?
Calling. This is like my third time calling you.
Cool.
But I got to tell you once again, I got found a new friend in you. You seem to be hitting all the home runs here with everything you're saying. I happen to agree with you, which is amazing these days where I get somebody that actually agrees with me. But I am a criminal justice student. I was in criminal justice classes back in the 90s. I'm now 68 years old, so I've got a little bit of experience with me through public safety. But I have to say I totally agree with you. I think there's too much, it's, I don't know, going back to the OJ trial, there's too much white, black going on here. And I'm not a racist, but sometimes people don't kind of look at it with an educated eye like you seem to do and I do when I see these shootings, and I call it like I see it.
Yeah, I get. Listen, I have a lot of compassion for Dexter Reed's mother. She's grieving. I totally understand. She wants to believe her son's the victim. She wants to believe her son didn't do anything wrong. But the reality of the situation is he did. He buried his own grave. I mean, I'm sorry to put it that way. And it's amazing, when I go on some of these social media platforms, even like TikTok today, and I try to get both sides, and I try to be reasonable, and I try to be fair, and they'll suspend you. It's incredible to me. So, I mean, they could get rid of TikTok. I really don't care. But they're the only social media platform that will suspend you for doing nothing wrong. I mean, here I am saying, here's one case where I think police officers were at fault in the Kenneth Knotts case in Texas. And here's a case in the Dexter Reed case. And I'm only going by facts here. Yeah, I'm giving my opinions, but I'm basing it on facts. And that's not good enough for some people. I still hear some people saying, in the Ferguson case that Michael Brown was murdered. And all you have to do is look at the evidence, which is not true. I want to hold everybody accountable, criminals, police officers, but I go by evidence, right? And there are still people out there that think Michael Brown was murdered. And I say to myself, what are you talking about? And on the other side, there are still people out there that say that Derek Chauvin is not a murderer. He was innocent. Both people are wrong, Tom. And I appreciate you calling in and pointing that out in Syracuse, my man. You have a good one. Thank you so much. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Julie. Julie's next. What's up, Julie? What's going on?
Hey, Brian. Well, today I want you to suggest you to see. Have you watched the Fall of Minneapolis documentary yet?
I'm sorry. What documentary?
The Fall of Minneapolis.
Which documentary? There have been plenty of documentaries.
It's called The Fall of Minneapolis I believe it's by Liz.
No, I haven't. I haven't seen it, and I haven't really, and the reason why I haven't really watched anything else in regards to George Floyd is because the jury already.
No, but I suggest you to watch it because
Why?
Because it's a new documentary. It's a camera video. It's the camera video that the police.
Okay, so what are they claiming? So what are they claiming, that the officers didn't do anything wrong?
No. It started. The documentary is featuring the body-worn camera video of George Floyd's arrest interview with officers who served during the riot. Key evidence from the autopsy.
Okay, but we already heard all the
trial.
Okay, but we already heard all the evidence in a court of law. So why would I care about what some documentary says?
The media.
Julie. Okay, so hold on. Okay, forget about a documentary.
Ignored.
Forget about a documentary, which is irrelevant. I'm asking you a question now. Are you mean?
No, it is relevant.
Okay, I'm asking you a question.
New.
I'm asking you a question. Do you mean to tell me that you don't believe Derek Chauvin committed murder, even though he's a convicted murderer? Do you mean?
No, I don't think so because
Okay.
that
So let me ask you.
Okay,
so let me ask you another question then. When somebody says they can't breathe and they're in handcuffs, lying on their stomach, you think it's totally okay to put your knee on somebody's neck for 8 minutes? You have no problem with that. Is that what you're telling me?
No, they call 911. That's the part that the media ignores.
Julie, I'm asking you. Julie, my question. Julie, my question has nothing to do with the documentary. Listen to my question. I'm being very specific. Do you mean to tell me that when somebody is handcuffed, lying on their stomach, not moving, claiming that they can't breathe, begging the officer to take the knee off of his neck, do you mean to tell me that you have no problem with what Derek Chauvin did for 8 minutes, putting his knee on George Floyd's neck? I don't care about some documentary. I'm asking you. Do you have no problem with anything Derek Chauvin did?
You are mischaracterizing my words.
I'm asking you a question. I'm not mischaracterizing.
I have a problem with that, but that's not what happened.
Okay.
That's not what happened.
Okay, so are you claiming to me that Derek Chauvin, my eyes must be lying to me, in the full video, unedited, that I've seen, that Derek Chauvin didn't put his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes? Is that what you are claiming?
Alexander Kuhn was the one who was arrested.
All right. Julie, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it with you, okay? I can't do it. Julie, the video speaks for itself. I'm sorry if you are not based in reality, Julie. You don't put your knee on somebody's neck for 8 minutes when they're handcuffed with their hands behind their back, saying, I can't breathe, lying on their stomach. That's exactly what happened. Okay? That's exactly what happened. And either you're ignorant to the facts in the case. I don't care what documentary you're talking about. Do you want to cite 2,000 Mules too? Just because somebody does a documentary doesn't mean it's true. I don't care, Julie. I don't care. You said it yourself. You're not okay with that. Okay, well, that's the reality. That's what happened. Let's go to Damon. Damon is next up on Pushing the Limits. What's up, Damon? Hi, Damon. Go right ahead. Damon, are you there? Damon? Damon, can you hear me? Okay, put Damon on hold. We'll go to the next caller. Let's go to Patrick. Patrick is next on Pushing the Limits. Hello, Patrick.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick. Come again?
On the homicide.
Say that one more.
Homicide deal.
Start again because your phone cut out a little bit. Go ahead.
Participation on the homicide deal there. That doesn't mean anything.
What homicide deal? Which case are you talking about?
Well, you're talking about the one in Texas where the police officers and you're all upset that it's called a homicide on the death certificate.
Okay, so it's not about me being all upset. It's about me reporting on the facts. I watched the video. I don't know if you watched the video. The man was having a mental breakdown. He was.
I don't care about that.
Okay, well, I know you don't care about that, but I actually care about facts. I know.
I don't care about facts.
Okay, so here are the facts. Okay, so here are the facts, brother. By the way, you're not my brother. Okay, thank God. Here are the facts. I'm reporting on the facts. I know you don't care, but I care. He wasn't trying to harm any officers. He didn't have any weapons on him. He was handcuffed with both hands behind his back. He was asking for water. He was hyperventilating, and he said he couldn't breathe. Proper protocol with any police department across the country is if somebody is having a medical episode, and clearly this gentleman was having a mental episode and he was having trouble breathing, is you don't lie them on their stomach. Why is that proper protocol? I'll tell you why. Because any doctor will tell you when somebody is struggling to breathe, the worst position you can put them in is lying on their stomach. Now, do you care about those facts, sir?
No, I don't.
You don't? Okay, well, then have a nice day then. I'm not interested in having a conversation with you because, quite frankly, you're just not smart enough to have a conversation with me. If you're not willing to deal with facts, then how can I have any conversation with you? State your case, but if you're not interested, why do I want to talk to you? Those are the facts in the case, and I'm sorry you're not capable of having a conversation and you can't spell the word fact. All right, let's go back to Damon. Damon, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, Brian? I'm out here charging this car next to these electric things. That's probably what was doing it.
All good.
Here's this. There's two things about it that I just would like to say. Now, you know how I feel about cops, but they were right in this case to shoot back. Definitely 100%. But the first thing you got to look at is how we came to this moment. They escalated the situation because he rolled his window up. Don't roll up the window. He could have rolled up his window and they still could have talked to him. I don't know why. You said 5 in an unmarked car, right?
Correct.
5 cops in an unmarked car, Brian, in the hood. That's the ass-kicking squad.
Okay, but hold on. Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's just say that maybe he didn't have to roll his window down. Let's just say that, geez, maybe 5 officers in an unmarked car might have been too many. I still come to the same conclusion, Damon. This guy.
I get you, but let me finish though, Brian. Okay. I get you. You came to the conclusion already before I'm done speaking.
Okay.
That's
Go ahead.
But okay. Now, thing is this: if you live in the hood, you've been in the hood before, and you came across kicking quiet, that's not to have your ass kicked by him. Now, if George Floyd would have had a gun on him, knew what was coming, and shot those cops before they did what they did, would George Floyd been right?
Of course not.
Of course not. Why not? He know those cops coming for trouble. He know those cops last time they told him we catch you again, we're going to kill you.
You're saying you're justifying somebody
I don't know,
shooting gun?
I don't know what's going through this man's head.
Okay, but hold on. Here's the thing. It does. But Damon, hear me out. Hear me out now. It doesn't matter what is going through their head. The last thing you should ever do in any situation, unless it's self-defense, is take out a gun.
Brian, if you're on the streets and you've been in a situation where you know this person will kill you, you do not.
Okay, hold on a second. Damon, hang on a second. Do you mean to tell me that you think Dexter Reed would have still been killed if he didn't take out his gun and start shooting at police? Come on.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But I don't know what led the man to take that gun out. Was his mental condition?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, but Damon.
If the cops have beat me up or told me they're going to kill me or they're going to do this or they're going to lock me up for 20 years and put a case on me.
I can't speak to that.
If they done told me all that, Brian, I done had a bunch of friends that say I ain't going through that.
Damon, I can't.
I had a bunch of friends that have been beat up.
I'm sorry that.
I ain't going through that.
Damon, I can't speak to that because I'm not talking about your personal situation. I'm talking about this situation specifically.
And I know it all ain't going with my personal experience, Brian. So I'm looking at 5 cops in an unmarked car. I know what they up to, Brian.
Damon,
and I'm not saying that they wasn't right. I'm not saying that they wasn't right in shooting. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm just saying what led the man to do that. They need to investigate these
there
cops.
are all sorts.
When he saw him.
Okay, but here's the thing, Damon. There are all sorts of different reasons why people do horrible, stupid things. In this situation, it doesn't matter what his reasoning was. He's not right. You can't justify taking out your gun and shooting at police officers.
You've never had your life in danger, Brian. You've never had anybody threaten you with framing you with 20 years then. You can't think like that.
So you think that they were – hold on a second. They pulled him over – but hold on. Damon, they pulled him over because he wasn't wearing a seat belt.
There was right, and that's what 5 cops in an unmarked car do every day.
There could have been
that is not what they out there for, Brian. They're not out there for the seatbelt patrol.
But Damon, there could have been 1 police officer or 1,000 police officers that pulled him over.
They ain't out there to check seat belts.
Damon,
open your eyes.
Damon, it doesn't justify taking out your gun and shooting at officers.
I started with the police, right?
Okay.
I did not justify
so what did the?
I'm just saying what was going through his head. Investigate those officers, see how many situations came up like this.
Irrelevant by the law what was going through his head. You can't justify because something you think was.
I'm not justifying it, Brian. You not getting.
So what do you disagree with me? So what are you disagreeing?
The point I'm trying to make is I'm not disagreeing. I started with the cops was right in doing what they did. I'm saying what made him scared. What made him willing to shoot it out with 5 cops knowing you can't win? What made him do that?
I could answer that.
Investigate them cops. I bet you the situation that came up before where a seatbelt ticket ended up with somebody dead or hurt.
I can answer that. It's an opinion if you want to hear it. What led to
Go ahead.
I think you have to be an extremely stupid person to think that you should take out your gun and shoot at cops because you might be scared or justifiably being scared is not a justification of taking out your gun and shooting at somebody, in this case, police officers. You have to agree with me on that.
Brian, I'm not trying to justify the man. You're not listening. What I'm trying to do is say, why did he do that? We investigating the wrong stuff. Okay, this open and shut. He pulled his gun out, he shot at him, boom. Case closed. He was wrong, they got him. Good. But why is 5 plainclothes cops out here? And I don't know if they're plainclothes or not.
Okay,
You know,
so here's what I can tell you.
I'm just saying, why was he so scared of it?
Here's what
That's what I want to know.
So here's what I can tell you, and
no-win situation.
So here's what I disagree with you. If he just rolled down his window,
you think he can beat 5 cops shooting?
I can guarantee you. Damon, I can guarantee you that if he didn't take out his gun, if he got his citation for not wearing a seatbelt, and he didn't take out his gun and start shooting cops, they would not have. They would not have killed him. They would not have killed him.
So
now, I also.
Brian, you proving my case even more. It's just a seatbelt ticket. If it's just a seatbelt ticket, why are you so scared?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that do a lot of stupid things in society, and there's no justification.
Ain't nobody that damn stupid, Brian, to shoot it out with 5 cops was best.
You have to be a certain type of stupid to do that. And I'm sorry, but Dexter Reed, it's a tragedy. But when you take out your gun, and by the way, he struck an officer too. He could have killed cops. And you start shooting first, you get what's coming to you. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. It doesn't matter what the color of his skin was and has anything to do with my opinion.
How many times you heard me say the police was right? How many times you heard me say that?
I understand, but I'm trying to understand why you keep saying I don't know what was going through his head. It doesn't matter what was going through his head. What he did was stupid. He killed himself.
Frank been doing this to people every day, doing whatever. It's like that cop that got caught in Tallahassee framing people.
That is a Damon. I hear you. Damon, I hear you, my friend. But that is a different circumstance. That's all I will say. Every situation is different. Damon, I appreciate the phone call. All right, here's what I want to do right now. So I promised you we would be previewing the hush money case involving Donald Trump, Stormy Daniels. There's so much to get to with this case. The trial starts on Monday. And I figured what better person to talk about this case and so many other issues than my friend, the Mooch, who is the former press secretary to Donald Trump, Anthony Scaramucci, joining us right now. Mooch, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, my friend. I appreciate the time. How you doing, buddy?
Well, I hope you can hear me okay, and I apologize. I was supposed to already be out of the car, but I'm in New York traffic, Brian, so I apologize for that.
You don't have to apologize, Mooch. I
But
appreciate you. I
but if you can
appreciate you coming
hear
on.
me okay, it's good to be on. But I think the number one thing about this case is that he's going to get convicted, and so you'll invite me back after the conviction. This case, remember, Alvin Bragg is the first to indict Donald Trump in a criminal case. And so we've seen 5 decades of criminality from Trump, but we have one district attorney willing to indict him. And so he told people inside and outside the case, I've got to have him dead to rights in the case. The evidence has to be incontrovertible. I had dinner the other night with Robert Abrams, who is the former New York State Attorney General. Now, Mr. Abrams is 85 years old, has seen rank criminality from Mr. Trump and his family for multiple decades, and says that he will get a conviction. The question is, will he put him in jail? Will the court system put him in jail?
Yeah.
And of course, he's going to go on appeal and all this all stuff. And just one last point, sir. He cannot pardon himself from this case. Okay,
Right.
so let's say he's elected president. This is a state case. He has no ability to pardon himself. He'd have to get a Republican governor in the state of New York to pardon him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. But you hear a lot of people, even people on the left, that are saying this is going to make Donald Trump more strong. He's going to gain more support, because he's playing the victim card, as he does in all of these cases. What do you make of that? Do you think this helps or hurts Donald Trump come November?
So it definitely hurts him because he's blowing a very loud, racist dog whistle. And you just got to look at his tweets, on Truth Social, look at what he's saying about Bragg or Attorney General James. And, when I say dog whistle, I really mean it in the truest metaphorical sense. A white person may not hear it as clearly as an African American. And John Hope Bryant, who you may know, runs the Hope Organization. I just left him in New York City on my way out of the city. African American, one of the largest entrepreneurial groups in America. He says to me, don't pay attention to those polls that are coming out about black men, because most of those black men they're polling are not going to vote. It's the black women that vote. They're going to decide this election. They're going to go to the election and vote in droves to vote against them. So I think it hurts him because his voters are already decided.
Right.
Believe it or not, Joe Biden's voters are already decided. This is going to be a get out the vote exercise. And so if Trump continues to blow the black racist dog whistle on Truth Social, I think it's going to really bring out the turnout. And just remember this, Trump's not raising money despite the lies that he told about the $50 million fundraiser. That $50 million is an accumulation of about 4.5 months of fundraising. President Biden is $90 million ahead of him. He's opening 5 field offices to every one Donald Trump office.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about states like Wisconsin and states like Michigan, he will out manpower Trump in those states. And this is going to be a get out the vote exercise, Brian. So the nonsense that it's helping him is nonsense from his base that is screeching louder now. But it's not going to help him. He's going to lose this election. I probably can't use bad words on your radio show, but he's going to get his donkey kicked in this election.
I hope you're right on that, Mooch. Since you're a New Yorker and I come, I grew up in Connecticut. I have family in New York. Obviously, horrible story, right, of this slain police officer who was murdered on the streets of New York City. Terrible, terrible story. Donald Trump goes to the wake, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that because he holds a press conference. He makes it public. Listen, sadly, hundreds of officers died under Donald Trump. Every single one of them is a tragedy. He didn't go to any of those wakes. Do you agree with me that this was only for political purposes? And then you have the owner of the New York Jets going on Fox News the other day telling people how compassionate Donald Trump is. What do you make of Donald Trump and what I would consider it charades and politics going to this wake in New York, and were you offended as I was by him doing that?
So unfortunately, that young man, who's my son's age, lives out here on Long Island near me,
Mm-hmm.
and so I know him personally, but I know a lot of people that knew him personally, and it is a despicable tragedy that he was murdered. And so I just want to point out to everybody, the person that murdered that young man, that New York City police officer, was arrested 21 times and let out on this thing known as bail reform. And so
Yep.
it's not racist to put somebody in jail that's going to bring harm to a community, shoot our police officers, and make people generally feel unsafe in the city of New York. So we have to absolutely fix that unmitigated tragedy. As it relates to Mr. Trump, that was pure and total hypocrisy because, as you know, if police officers were killed or wounded during the insurrection on the 6th of January, he's calling for the pardon of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's calling the people that fomented that insurrection hostages to the American government. Okay, and he's saying despicable things, and the media's not playing this enough, Brian. But if you don't mind, let me just say it on your show
Sure.
for a second. He is saying that the immigrant, whether it's an illegal immigrant or a legal immigrant, is poisoning the blood of our country. That's an exact quote, and that quote is lifted from Mein Kampf. And that's Adolf Hitler's treatise that he wrote while he was in jail. The other thing he's saying is that these people are animals; they're subhuman.
Right.
Also quoted from Mein Kampf in terms of the dehumanization of other humans in an attempt to scapegoat one party to help you with another party. So what I don't understand about the mainstream media is, Fox News wants to praise him for being there, wants to attack Joe Biden for holding a fundraiser that day. That was ill-timed. I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but it's not just the hypocrisy of going to support one police officer while you're letting others die, and you're saying the people that killed those should be pardoned. Purest of pure hypocrisies. He's out there chanting and lifting quotes from Adolf Hitler. And so I don't understand why that isn't expounded upon. I don't understand why the media is not playing that over and over again. And so this is some really disgusting stuff happening in the United States. It's as if Huey Long and Charles Lindbergh, who were the fathers of the first America First movement, it's like if Huey Long and Charles Lindbergh had a baby, and that baby is the orange-haired Donald Trump wreaking havoc on the civilization 80 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good analogy there. And moving forward, what do you make of the fact that Donald Trump, he's trying to delay every case, the hush money case, Jack Smith. What do you make of the fact that he's trying to delay all these cases? I think it's pretty obvious, right? Because he wants to become president and pardon himself. But what do you make of that? If you're an innocent man, why would you want to delay this? Wouldn't you want to get it out of the way?
So you have to delay these cases. He's not an innocent man. I don't want to give up the name of one of the attorneys that work for him that I'm actually very close to. This attorney's a defense attorney, criminal defense attorney. Said that he's met killers, he's defended dons, never met a more despicable or evil person than Donald Trump in terms of the pure malevolence of what he's capable of. And I think the evidence of the insurrection case is overwhelming. Or he's caught on tape fomenting the violence. He's caught on tape saying that we should disregard and rip up the Constitution. Okay, and so this is treason. Okay, that's what treason is.
Mooch, can I interject real
Yeah.
quick and ask
Yes.
you if that's okay? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
You're telling me that you personally know a current attorney defending Donald Trump?
No, not defending him. Not they dropped that of the case.
Okay, so somebody
No, he dropped
that
out of the case. No. He took on the
okay.
case. Everyone does the same thing. They're like, okay, I'll go work for him. I'll take on the case. Oh my God, he's a despicable, heinous human being. He's not going to pay my bill. And he's doing and saying things that are absolutely despicable. He's attacking judges on Truth Social. He's attacking the daughters of judges on Truth Social. You know what? I don't want to get disbarred. I'm very, very sorry. I respectfully pull myself off the case. Okay,
Wow.
and that has happened, and that continues to happen. That's
Right.
why, he's got this woman that is obviously clueless
How about
working for him
yeah.
now. But the point I'm making is a bigger, broader point that everybody sees the malevolence. The evidence is there. If you're Donald Trump, you're hoping you can skate this like you've skated 5 decades of crimes.
Yep.
If nobody sees the evidence before the election, he's in the race.
Yep.
If you're telling me that Jack Smith exposes the tapes, and this gentleman by the name of Mark Meadows, who's a white man from North Carolina, he ran the Freedom Caucus, the most conservative part of the House of Representatives, is the chief witness for the prosecution, Brian. This is not Republican talking points,
right?
Soros-sponsored African-American DA.
Right.
This is a white guy that was his chief of staff that has him dead to rights for treason. And so if that stuff gets played before the election, if the Supreme Court allows that to happen, and then Americans or the American people or part of the American people are still willing to vote for him, and then that cliche lives, Brian.
Sure.
You get the voters get the voters get the politicians they deserve. And so
I always wanted to go ahead, Mooch. Sorry to interrupt. Okay, I was just going to say, with your financial background and your expertise, I've always wanted to ask you this. Do you believe Donald Trump is in financial trouble? There's people out there that say, oh, he's worth $5-6 billion. And now he's selling $60 Bibles and $400 sneakers. With your financial expertise and what you know about Donald Trump, where do you think his finances are right now?
He's incredible. Doesn't worth $5 time he can unlock.
You're breaking up a little there, Mooch.
It's down about 50%. Can you hear me, brother?
Now you're good. Now you're good. Go right ahead. Yeah, start over. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just saying that it's called DJT is going to zero before he can sell it.
Would you say, because we lost a little bit about what you said there, I think we just lost you again, so we'll try to get Mooch back. And the reason why I ask him about the finances, because that's a big part in this whole thing, right? And if there's anybody that knows, Donald Trump's personal finances and would be honest about it, it's certainly Anthony Scaramucci, right? A guy who has been pretty well in tune and in touch with Donald Trump, knows him very well. So we'll see if we can get him back. We'll see if we can get him back on. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We'll see if we can get him back. We were just talking with Anthony Scaramucci. We lost the sometimes cell service doesn't work in some areas, as we all know. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. We'll try to get the Mooch back on. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. You know, no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840. All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Friday. I wanted to get right down to it because we just had Anthony Scaramucci on and we lost him. We lost the service, and I believe the Mooch is right back on with us. Anthony, can you hear me okay?
Sorry, I'm in the house now. I got to clear.
You sound loud and clear, my friend.
Okay.
So I appreciate you coming back. A couple more quick questions for you, but let's start with that question that I asked earlier, which is, where do you believe, because you cut out a little bit, where do you believe Donald Trump is where his finances are at right now?
Yeah, so what I was trying to say is that he's worth more than people want to give him credit for, but he's worth less from a liquid point of view. So it's going to be very hard for him to get the money together that he needs to pay these bills, to pay these settlements. Now, he hijacked the Republican Party for that reason, and they're sending out donation letters now saying that money that comes in, it goes to him to pay for his legal fees.
Okay, got you. Yeah, because I mean, listen, I don't know who's lending Donald Trump the money, or I guess we do know to an extent of who it is, but we know there's a lot of people that do not want to be giving Donald Trump hundreds of millions of dollars. With that being said, when it's all said and done, where do you think Donald Trump is going to be left after these 4 cases? Whether he's the president of the United States or not certainly has a lot to do with it. Is this guy going to have any money when this is all said and done? Where do you think he's going to be at?
So no one asked this question, but does he have money overseas? Because, if you told me that Joe Biden or Barack Obama or George W. Bush was accepting bribes from foreign entities, I would say no, 100% they haven't. But it's not clear to me that you can say no to that question related to Donald Trump. I don't have any information on that, but I think you have to ask yourself that because he's easily manipulated. He was against TikTok. A couple of donors that own TikTok through ByteDance gave him money. Now he's for TikTok.
Yeah, no, and his Truth Social doesn't seem. I don't think he'll be buying any stock in Truth Social anytime soon. I want to ask you this. You're a lifelong Republican. You're a staunch Republican, but you're fair. You're honest. What do you say to all the Republicans out there that hate Joe Biden so much that they're still willing to vote for a liable sexual abuser? And listen, we could go down the list of we agree on Donald Trump, who he is, the human being. What would you say to your fellow Republicans that will still stand by Donald Trump no matter what?
I would say I don't know what you're doing, because 40 of us that were inside the perimeter worked in the cabinet, worked inside the White House. Don't go by me. What about General Milley? What about General Kelly? General McMaster? Rex Tillerson? There's 40 of us, including the vice president. Remember, Brian, Mike Pence was the only guy Donald Trump couldn't fire because he was constitutionally on the ballot with him. You don't have one of these people supporting this guy. Just imagine if we worked in an automotive company and 40 of us got together and said, hey, please don't put your family in this car. We were there watching the construction of the car. It's going to fall apart and hurt your family. But I don't understand how we're not getting through to these people. Yeah. And so I don't know why they're going to do it. They're claiming, from a relative perspective, Joe Biden at the border, Joe Biden's crime issue. They probably don't want Kamala Harris to be president if something were to happen to Joe Biden. And there's the equivocation. But I'm telling you, all of those factors are not a big enough deal to me. I'm a patriot first, and I'm a partisan second. So even though I'm a Republican, I will be working very hard for President Biden this fall to make sure he becomes president again.
Yeah, and I love to hear that. All right, on a lighter note, before I let you go, Mooch, What is this little rift you have with Dave Portnoy? I saw the video that you put up showing pictures of your beautiful family in your office. What is
Oh, it was
going
a
on
joke.
between you and Dave Portnoy?
No, not. I love Dave
Okay.
Portnoy. It was a joke. No, there's no rift. I was just saying I don't get how the dog. I have all these beautiful people in my life. I don't get any attention. It's a little bit of jealousy, Brian.
All
It was
right.
a little tongue-in-cheek jealousy.
Fair
He's
enough.
got Miss Peaches.
Yeah.
His social media is exploding. I've got these nice young kids. Why don't they rate?
I thought it was a funny video. I personally enjoyed it myself. And you do have a beautiful family, by the way. And I look forward to meeting you in person and
All
your
right,
daughter, who's quite the musician, by the way.
Just trying to make a joke. Just trying to tease people. That's all.
I enjoyed it. I need a laugh now and then with everything that's going on in the world. Hey, Mooch, I always appreciate you coming on the show, my man, and taking the time. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Good to be on, brother. Have a great weekend.
You too, Mooch. Thank you so much. That's Anthony Scaramucci, everybody, from his car to his home, joining us on the show. Always love the perspective from the Mooch. I do have some sports news to share with you as well. It's pretty big. Tiger Woods has made the cut in the Masters, which is incredible at the age of 48 with all of his injuries. 24th consecutive cut made. Unbelievable. So we talked a lot, and I know there's people on hold that want to chime in. You can chime in about the Anthony Scaramucci interview I just did. Pretty interesting stuff. You can also chime in. We were talking about police brutality. We were talking about law enforcement. I gave you Kenneth Knott's story where he said, "I can't breathe." And then he was put on his stomach in handcuffs, and he died. The coroner ruled it a homicide. Nobody has been indicted. Then I talked to you about the Dexter Reed case in Chicago, where he takes out a gun and starts shooting at cops, strikes an officer. He was shot and killed, and people are saying this had something to do with race. Some people are saying it was murder. It was not, in my opinion. It was not, based on the evidence. So I'm going to take your phone calls on that, your thoughts on all the things that Anthony Scaramucci said, and I'm going to open up the phone lines again at 702-221-7283. And again, that number, 702-221-7283. Before we go to break, I want to tell you guys about my good friends at Pioneer Air. Leo and the crew and his family came to this country from Mexico. The church has helped bring him into this country. He took over Pioneer Air, a company that's been around since the 1930s, one of the most successful air conditioning companies in the entire state. And now, for PTL listeners, he's giving you a special. If you call Leo at Pioneer Air and mention the name of this show, you're going to get free scheduled maintenance for up to a year. That's like getting free oil changes in your car. It's worth a $150 minimum value. But you got to call them now and say you heard about Pioneer Air on this show, and you're going to get a free scheduled maintenance VIP service for up to a year. No catch. 702-703-6346. Let me give out that number one more time. Ask for Leo at Pioneer Air. Area code 702-703-6346. We're going to take a break. Your calls are coming up next. Boy, do we have a lot to get into. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP. Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran, veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well. So I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Gwynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yousafzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your People's Choice for City Council. With a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen, I am committed to moving us forward. I am not just a candidate, I am a fighter for you. With myself on the City Council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith, because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Voters want safe gun reform, ban military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks, and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman, former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign bot fund account and stay progressive.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. FM AM Dial, the Occupy Democrats Network. I also ask that you subscribe to my YouTube page, which is at PTL Radio Show. Want to remind you guys of my favorite gaming bar in town. It's called Jackson's Bar and Grill. I talk about it all the time. It's at Flamingo and Jones. I've been in there several times just this week alone. Love the people. Love the customers. You get all the local celebrities in there, including myself, by the way, because I'm just this huge celebrity. But in all seriousness, great food, great atmosphere, great gaming bar. And I've met so many wonderful people there, including the owners of Jackson's Bar and Grill, Brian Shapiro and his beautiful wife, Robin. The food is second to none. The gaming promotions are some of the best in town. Trust me, you don't want to miss Jackson's Bar and Grill. Check them out. Stop by this weekend over at Flamingo and Jones. We're talking about two situations when it comes to law enforcement. One involving a man in Texas by the name of Kenneth Knotts. Medical examiner rules it a homicide because he was put in a semi-prone position and had cardiac arrest. No police officers have been indicted. And then the opposite of that, where I think law enforcement did the right thing, where Dexter Reed is pulled over because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and then he takes out a gun and starts shooting at cops, strikes one officer. Officers shoot back. He dies on the scene, and now people are saying, no, some people, no justice, no peace, and they're protesting. What are they protesting? Are you saying that if somebody takes out a gun, points it at an officer, by the way, is bad enough, you can use deadly force, and then shoots at officers? What are the officers supposed to do? Just fire back a couple times and stop shooting? That's not how officers are trained. Number to call, 702-221-7283. We also had the Mooch on. We just had Anthony Scaramucci joining us live on the program as well. Let's start off with Joseph. Joseph is first up. What's up, Joseph?
Yeah, hey, Brian. Calling from California. Here's my piece on that one. Those cops, the way the cops are putting that man who is suffering from a mental breakdown on the stomach and can't breathe, makes me think this is exactly the same way the cops did to George Floyd. Because that's the problem with these cops. They're
taking it, but they're going to the extreme, just like those MAGA Republicans want. That's what they want. They want extreme violence.
Well, let me say this. I hear what you're saying, and I think there are some similarities. Don't get me wrong. I think you're right on that. Obviously, nobody put their knee on this guy's neck for 8 minutes, and that's why Derek Chauvin is in jail and he's a murderer. But I do understand what you're saying. You have a guy who's having a mental breakdown. He's handcuffed, right? So he's not running away. He's not going anywhere. He's certainly not a threat to the police officers. He's screaming for water. He's not threatening anybody. And clearly you can see that this guy is going through some sort of mental breakdown, and the cops are complicit. I think that's involuntary manslaughter. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree with that one. And speaking of that hush money trial, the reason why Trump is delaying these trials is because he's too chicken to go up against Stormy Daniels and Jack Smith, even Letitia James.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like I say, the one person who should also be in court to testify will be E. Jean Carroll, because Trump continues to defame her.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I will say this in closing. Donald Trump did go up against Stormy Daniels already, and I was told it lasted about 8 seconds. But maybe we'll learn more about that next week. Thank you for the call, Joseph. Appreciate you. 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Julian, who's calling next. What's up, Julian? Hi, Julian. Go right ahead.
Oh, man, you caught me at the worst time. I'm literally just about to do something.
Oh, okay.
I have to take a rain check. I'm so sorry about this.
That's okay. We'll put you back on hold. I wonder what he was doing. Now I'm really curious. What was Julian doing? What did I catch him in? I don't know. Maybe we should put up a poll. What is Julian doing? I could think of a few things that might be inappropriate for radio. 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE if you'd like to be a part of the program. Let's go to Kava. Kava's next. What's up, Kava?
Hey, Brian. How are you doing this fine day?
I'm doing all right. What's on your mind, man?
So I want to talk about what you were just talking about. The Chicago case, as a person of color, I can't believe I'm even saying this out loud. But I have to hand it to the police on this one. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but the cops did what they had to do. I'm sorry. You guys are not going to like me saying that, but...
Why do you... can I ask you a question? And I agree with you, but why do you have to apologize for being right? Okay? Why?
Because a lot of people have attacked me and threatened me.
Well, they're idiots. They're idiots. You know, the bottom line here is this. All cops are not... I know we agree on this. All cops are not bad. In fact, most cops are decent, good human beings. Most of them risk their lives every day. So if some people out there want to make the case that all cops are racist, that some of them are, most of them are not, or all cops are horrible people, then those are not very intelligent people. You can't have just like you can't have a reasonable conversation with somebody that says Trump won the 2020 election. I can't have a reasonable conversation with somebody that thinks cops are not justified in shooting and killing somebody that takes out their gun and shoots at them first. This is basic intellect. This is logic, right? So you shouldn't have to apologize.
And what I want to say is also, I can also see the other side of it, because police brutality has been happening for years, but at the same time, I see both sides. One side wants change, the other also wants to help me change. And I can see, like you're saying, there's two coins to this thing. Mm-hmm. There's two sides of the coin. There's one where it's been happening for years and people are upset about it. Fine, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then there are the cops who are trying to do their job. And a lot of people don't like that, but that's life. You're going to have to get used to things you're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
That's just how life is.
No, I hear you, and you're absolutely right. But the bottom line here is that I try to be fair on this show. I think most people know that, and I try to, take both sides of an issue and then give you my opinions. What type of country?
No, you're doing great.
Yeah,
you're doing great.
What type of country
if people don't like it?
Yeah,
that's their problem.
I agree. I agree, Kava, and that's the approach I take, my friend. And I appreciate your phone
one more
call.
thing before I go.
Sure.
Okay. So people that are harassing Brian on Twitter and accusing him of stuff, you guys don't know Brian.
Oh, I don't
He's
care.
like a brother.
Yeah.
Leave Brian alone.
Oh, it's
if you
okay.
Want to give him crap, come for me.
Don't
End
worry.
of conversation.
Don't worry. I appreciate you saying that,
hold
Cabo,
on,
but
Cabo.
I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I don't really pay
I
attention
know, I'm
to the
just worried
trolls.
about you.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you.
Hey, Kava.
Oh, have a good one, brother.
He loves this, so it's all good. He feeds off it.
Let me thank you, Kava, for the call. Let me be clear and say this: if people weren't attacking me, if people weren't going after me as a radio host, then I'd be doing something wrong. I could care less. The trolls go after me. They listen to my show every day. They're obsessed with me. And quite frankly, again, if people aren't going after me or, trying to, the personal whatever, then I'm not doing something right. So I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm a big boy. I can take care of myself. And most of the time I ignore it and I don't pay attention to it. Once in a while I have some fun, but it's all good. The bottom line here is this, right? We need to be fair in this country, right? Fairness. Being able to talk about an issue from an independent perspective. Now, listen, this is why I don't label myself to a political party. I call myself an independent because I'm an independent thinker. Now, some people might think I'm a liberal because I do lean to the left on just about every social issue. But I'm also independent in enough that I can still vote for some Republicans. Not many these days, but I voted locally for 8 local Republicans in the 2022 midterms. So if people want to label me, I really don't care. I'm an independent thinker. I take every issue for what it's worth. I give you my opinions on that issue. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and attack police officers or claim that officers did something wrong because a black man was shot and killed. I need to know the evidence in the case, and I need to know what took place. And I can tell you right now, based on the evidence, that Dexter Reed killed himself. Yes, the bullets that killed him came from law enforcement. They were justified. You can't ask for more justification when somebody takes out a gun and starts shooting at you. They don't even have to shoot. They could just point it at you, and that's justification to use deadly force. I understand that his mother is grieving. My heart goes out to her. It's horrible. I feel for his family. But when the emotion and the tension settles, they're going to have to come to the reality that their son or their brother or whatever did this to himself. Yes, I'm against any form of police brutality. Yes, I do believe systemic racism exists. Yes, I do believe as a whole black people are not treated the same as white people in society. We could be talking about law enforcement or anything. Yes, of course. And anybody who listens to the show knows I talk about these issues every day or almost every day. But in this specific situation, you can't be crying foul. You can't be saying that this was a racial issue. You can't be saying that officers went out and tried to murder this kid. You can't be saying that, the officers need to go to jail. They're murderers. No. And you can't say that about Ferguson. And yet I still see people on social media saying, you're wrong about Ferguson. Michael Brown was running away from the cop. No, he wasn't. The evidence proved that he wasn't running away from the cop. In fact, he was charging to him. We know that through the shots, the bullets. We also know that through eyewitness testimony. Explain to me why people who are black who live in Ferguson, many of them do not have good relationships with law enforcement. And by the way, I'm not blaming them and putting it all on them. Law enforcement there in Ferguson has failed as a whole at developing relationships with the community. But why would eyewitnesses that happen to be black tell law enforcement that day in their statements that Michael Brown was charging at the officer? Why? Why would they lie? Some of them, by the way, said that under oath. So yes, I'm going by the evidence, and that's why that officer wasn't charged with anything, and the attacks on him were wrong. There was no hands up, don't shoot narrative in that case. Were there some other situations where law enforcement have committed murder, or they shot somebody that was unarmed, or with their hands up? Absolutely, and it's horrible. And I want those police officers to be held to account to the highest extent of the law. I'm with you 150%. This is not the case. So while you might be out there and you might be saying, look at this, look at all these police officers that haven't been indicted. There's no accountability when a police officer does something wrong. Well, you're doing something just as bad when you're claiming that these police officers murdered Dexter Reed. It did not happen. I don't know what you expect officers to do when somebody points a gun and starts shooting. What do you expect an officer to do? It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. Now, if you want to make the case, as Damon called in earlier, that, boy, that's excessive. You got 5 undercover cops. I don't know why there's 5 undercover cops there, but I've heard that there's a lot of crime in that area. So who cares how many cops are in a van? Guess what? If your seatbelt isn't on and you get pulled over, and that's why the cop who described why they pulled him over, you weren't wearing your seatbelt. Lower your window and get your citation. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's been in law enforcement as a cop for decades. And I said to him, you know, these auditors, right, that go on YouTube and they do these videos. We had somebody named DirectD who did this show several months back. They're just trying to make police officers' lives more difficult. Let's just be honest here, okay? If you're pulled over for speeding, I get it. You don't have to roll your window all the way down. I understand. If you're at a DUI checkpoint, you don't have to answer any questions. I know that is your right. I get that. But why not just answer the questions so you can move on, make their life easier, and make your life easier? If you have nothing to hide, just comply, just answer their questions and move on. But these auditors that have these YouTube channels, they're making money off of giving people like you and me a hard time, sticking cameras in people's face in public. I'm not saying they're breaking the law. They're just being jerks, okay? Don't be a jerk. It goes the other way, too. I want police officers to do their job and understand the Constitution and First Amendment rights and all that stuff, and I think most officers do a pretty good job in doing that. Guess what? If you're at a DUI checkpoint and if they ask you, have you been drinking, just say no if you haven't been drinking. Just say no. Is that so hard? So I think there's frustration on both sides, right? My heart goes out to Dexter Reed's family. It's a terrible situation. Dexter Reed buried himself. The second you take out a weapon and you even point it at an officer, let alone shoot at an officer, it is a death wish. I don't understand these people out there. What, you're going to sue law enforcement for killing your son because your son shot at officers? What type of country are we living in? There are justified lawsuits and there are reasons why officers shouldn't be out on the streets. I get that. Derek Chauvin is a poster child for that. I understand, and I talk about those stories all the time on this show. This is just simply not the case. And don't sit here and tell me that law enforcement officers, they have an easy job, because they don't. They have to deal with scum of the earth 24/7. Not every officer is good. Not every officer has a good heart. Yes, there are some officers out there that are probably racist. There are some officers out there that don't treat white people and black people the same. Guess what? I don't want those officers on the streets. But you can't sit here and tell me the overwhelming majority of officers are bad. You can't sit here and tell me the overwhelming majority of officers are racist, or they're out to get you because of the color of your skin, or just out to get you all alone. Yes, there are some bad cops out there. I want them off the streets. Those cops that put Kenneth Knotts in Texas on his stomach when he went into cardiac arrest and he said he couldn't breathe, those are bad cops. Those cops should be held accountable, and they should never be on the streets again. Every single one of those cops that thought it was okay to put this guy on his stomach in handcuffs when he was freaking out and said he couldn't breathe, those officers should be held to account. Yes, there are plenty of cases out there where sometimes police officers, law enforcement, they're not held to account. I don't like that any more than you do, and I want them held to account. But what type of country are we living in when somebody can take out a weapon and shoot at officers first, and then officers shoot back? I don't care if it's one time or 100 times. And then somehow we're going to attack law enforcement and say they murdered somebody? What type of country are we living in? How is that possible? It's one of my biggest criticisms of Barack Obama, and I like Barack Obama, and I miss him, as I'm sure many of you do. I thought he was a really good president. I thought he did a really good job in 8 years. A very articulate, intelligent man. His wife, a classy lady. I like the Obamas. Geez, I wish one of them was back in office. I really do. But one of my biggest criticisms, because I do criticize both sides at time to time, lately I criticize far more people on the right than the left. I thought Barack Obama made a very big mistake when he commented on the Michael Brown Ferguson case, and then he sent members of his cabinet down to Michael Brown's funeral. What about that police officer who did absolutely nothing wrong? I thought Barack Obama made a mistake. Michael Brown was a bad guy. And he did some bad things that day, and it cost him his life. So, like it or not, that was a criticism of mine of Obama. I didn't think he handled that situation very well. You want to console the family? Fine. But Michael Brown's not a hero. He's a criminal who went after a police officer, went after his gun. How do we know that? Because Michael Brown's fingerprints were on this police officer's gun. Can you do something worse than that? Forget about noncompliance. Going after a police officer's gun is a death wish, just like Dexter Reed. Picking up your weapon and shooting at officers is a death wish. What else do you want me to say? All right, so here's what we're going to do. I know that many of you out there, like me, are accused of having Trump derangement syndrome, as some people would like to call it on the right, TDS. Now, those people that accuse me of Trump derangement syndrome, I say they have TFS, Trump fellatio syndrome. But with that being said, I struggle mentally at times to have conversations with some of these MAGA morons out there. And like you, like many of you, I am worried about November. I am hopeful at this point that Donald Trump doesn't get back into the White House. But I'm worried. So how do we deal with that worryness, for lack of a better term? How do we deal with some of these people? How do we deal with MAGA? How do we deal with people on the extreme right that are bigots? How? For those of you that watch television every day like I do, or you're on social media every day, mentally, I struggle. I'll be the first one to admit that. I struggle with these people. So, we're going to get some life coaching. I know some of you are in the same boat that I am in. We are going to get some life coaching, and if you want some life coaching advice, maybe we can take some phone calls as well, because Nicole Mitchell is a professional life coach. She's a former pastor, comes from a right-wing evangelical family, and she is going to give me some live life coaching. And if you would like some life coaching or have some questions for her, maybe we'll take some calls next segment as well, because Nicole Mitchell is going to be joining us next. If you struggle with MAGA world, if you struggle with MAGA country, if you struggle with all the things that Donald Trump brings us every day. So Nicole Mitchell is going to be joining us next, and I'm going to get her advice, and I think you're going to need it as well, probably as much as I do. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with Nicole Mitchell after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your people's choice for City Council. With a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen.
What? Hi? Oh, wait, I'm jealous. Your radio people get to see too much of you.
I am a fighter for you. With myself on the city council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Voters want safe gun reform, ban military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks, and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman, former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign bot fun account and stay progressive.
All right, welcome back. Pushing the Limits on a Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. I would request all of you subscribe to my YouTube page, which is growing every day, at PTL Radio Show. Also my personal website, which is ptlradio.com. And as I mentioned, several times this week, I've gone out to Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. It's my favorite gaming bar in town. Check it out. I'm sure I'll be hanging out there this weekend. Great food, great atmosphere. Really some of the best food that really any bar in this town has to offer. It's good quality, restaurant quality food. And you could sit there, watch a game, relax, have a good time, play a little bit on their video poker machines. And they have some great gaming promotions as well. Please check them out. Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. As I said that, I struggle mentally sometimes dealing with MAGA world. And it's not because I have Trump derangement syndrome. It's because I have bigotry, hate bigots, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. And I just struggle with dealing with bad people on a regular, everyday basis, as I'm sure everyone else. So I said, okay, I probably need a little bit of life coaching. How do I deal with these issues? And I figured, what better person than someone who is a former pastor, was part of the right-wing evangelical Christian group of people. And then she decided, okay, I want to do what I want to do. And now she's an OnlyFans model, a very successful one, and she gets paid to be a life coach. And wow, I'm very lucky because I get it for free today. Nicole Mitchell joining us right now. Nicole, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm so good, Brian. I'm so excited to have this life coaching session with you.
I need it, Nicole, and I know a lot of people listening right now need it as well because they struggle with some of the same things I struggle with. Okay, let's start here. Let's start with social media. So I get people left and right going after me. They're pro-MAGA people that'll say things that are absolutely ridiculous, that are not fact-based. Most of the time I ignore it. But once in a while, I know I'm wasting my time, but I engage. And then 30 or 45 minutes will go by and I say, wow, I just wasted 45 minutes of my life with this ignorant person. So why am I responding? And what should I do in the future to help me not respond, I guess?
I love this, Brian. I think this is so relevant because no matter what kind of influence you have on social media, no matter if you have a big following or small following, everyone can relate to this. Where someone says something that is triggering, frustrating, something we disagree with, and we can get caught in this, I need to convince them they're wrong. So I think part of it is we just want to tell them they're wrong. We want them to realize if we just explain enough, they'll finally get it. The only problem is, and I know you've experienced this with all the people who come after you, the more you try to convince, the more you push away. The more you try to convince, what do? They dig in their heels more. So the very energy we think is going to change their mind is actually the very energy that reinforces their beliefs. So I think just realizing that is what stops me from most of the time engaging, because I know if I try to convince them, it will have the opposite effect.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I certainly have to work on that. We're very divided as a country now. And I feel like I didn't necessarily feel the way I feel now as I felt 10 years ago. And when I hear stories forget about even social media, just when I have just regular conversations with everyday regular people, some people that I even call my friends, and they tell me, they'll defend Donald Trump when it comes to, at least in my opinion, the indefensible. It drives me crazy. Or for example, if I hear a woman, and I had a debate with somebody on social media, but this could be anywhere, with someone who is a victim of sexual assault, which is awful, by the way, and they're a Donald Trump supporter. And I say to myself, well, wait a second. Doesn't that take away you being a victim, which you are? You are a victim. Anybody who's, sexual assault, it's horrible. And then you're willing to, support somebody who has proven a liable sexual abuser in a courtroom. And I engage with them and I get very, very frustrated. It doesn't have to be on social media. It could be in person. I mean, when someone's trying to make, I guess my question is, when someone's trying to make the case, for example, that, well, don't vote for this guy because he cheated on his wife, but hey, you know what? I support Donald Trump. I don't even know how to respond to these people anymore. Right. I don't know what to do in that situation. What would you do? What is your advice on what I should do in that type of situation?
I always tell people that if you're going to choose to lean in this moment, because you can lean in and engage, or you can pull back and disengage, right? If you choose to lean in and engage, to increase your chance of having any kind of impact or influence is to lean in with curiosity. And so instead of saying, how could you be a sexual assault survivor and a vote for someone who has it in his history? It's like, can you share why? Or share with me how you're able to survive something so horrific and still vote for this man in office? I'm genuinely curious. I don't know. Would you be willing to share with me? And because obviously this is very personal and very private information, so they don't owe us anything. But if they are willing to, genuinely communicating, you're there to listen, not attack, they might actually share why, and you might learn something new. So I tell people, can you lean in with curiosity to learn rather than to lean in and attack and get your point across?
That is interesting. And, to be honest with you, in some cases, I actually have. I've said, explain to me, because I don't understand, which, by the way, I don't. I don't understand why somebody who is, and listen, there are people out there that are uneducated. I get it. But how somebody, could be an educated person with a college degree, with a good job and a nice family, that can look me in the face and say, you know what, I'm all in MAGA, or I'm buying $60 Bibles. I don't understand. I genuinely don't. Now, I can sit here and I could judge and I could say, well, that person is just an idiot, or that person is dumb or a moron. But I never really get a legitimate reason. And I guess that's what frustrates me. Maybe I will never understand. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
I think there's a part where sometimes we just will never understand someone we disagree with. I do think there's a difference, though, between saying, I don't understand, explain it to me, versus, hey, I'm willing to understand. Would you be willing to share a little bit more about your story? It's almost same exact words. They will land completely differently. So I really think the way we communicate really determines the results that we get. If there's any roughness, that makes most people walls go up. If there is a softness and an openness, people can feel that. They might be willing to engage. And here's the thing. When I have people who come after me, I almost never engage, but on the rare occasion I do engage, it's actually not to convince that person. I know there are so many silent lurkers, so many people quietly watching me in my position of influence and leadership, wondering how will Nicole respond to this? So I'm really aware of that. So when I engage, I'm responding for them. I'm not responding to the hater who will probably never change their mind about me. But there's a bunch of people who are a little bit more in the gray. They're not sure what to think of me. They're not totally sure what to make of me. And the way I respond is helping form their decision about me. So I try to respond graciously, or I try to respond in a way that shows my leadership, that shows the kind of impact I want to have, but never for the person who comes after me.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm at a point now where I think I lose my patience with people. I have a much shorter fuse. My issue is not when somebody disagrees with me on an opinion. But for example, when somebody completely misrepresents what I say, or what they say is not fact-based. So I want to have a conversation with somebody that disagrees with me. I want to engage. I want to help understand where they're coming from. But the conversation goes awry for me from the beginning when somebody says something that is not fact-based. Like they'll start a conversation by saying Trump won in 2020. And I'm at the point now where I just don't even want to engage with people like that. Is that wrong of me?
No, I think we have to know, like, what's your bandwidth? And I think it depends on the day. There's days where I have extra energy and I'm like, you know what? I feel a little gracious today. I'm actually going to engage with some people I typically disagree with. On days I'm strapped thin, it's like there is no way I'm engaging with them. They don't deserve any of my energy. So you have to
Yeah.
decide, like, do I have the bandwidth today to engage? And the other thing that's really important but very difficult to remember in the heat of the moment is when someone's emotional, facts don't matter.
Mm.
Facts don't matter. Like, all that
Yeah.
matters when someone is emotional is they're
Yeah.
emotional, and they typically need their emotions validated before they can even move beyond that. But as soon as emotions are high, both, like, the walls are so high, there's no fact information. There's
Mm.
no logical conversation happening. There's just an emotional debate. So
Sure.
I try to, like, hey, your feelings are legit, your opinion is legit, everyone's opinion is
Right.
legit. You're allowed to have your own opinion, you're entitled to your own beliefs. Like, I think we forget that that's allowed, and to validate that, validating them isn't saying you agree with them. You're just
Yeah.
validating that they can have their own opinion. It's like, would you be open to a civil discourse?
I think that's really good advice. So earlier in the week, I'm going to give you a situation that I got into earlier this week. Somebody that I've known for several years, never got into any arguments or debates or really anything. Usually with this person, we usually just talk sports. And politics got up in the conversation. And I didn't raise my voice. The only time I usually ever raise my voice is when I'm on the radio with a caller, to be quite frank. Didn't raise my voice. The conversation got political. And this person was yelling at me at the top of their lungs for about 20 minutes. Now, after a couple minutes, I just stopped listening to them. I just was tuned out, right? And I said to myself at the end of the conversation, this is obviously somebody who is unhinged, and I can't have any conversation around politics with them. I guess I think I handled it the right way because I didn't raise my voice and I just kind of just stopped listening. But what happens, like, if you're having a conversation with a family member and it goes awry and that person starts screaming, do you just walk away? Because I'm sure everybody's been in a situation like this before, where conversation starts normal and then it gets heated and then somebody starts disrespecting you and starts yelling. Like, how do you react to that?
God, every situation's so different, and then every personality is so different. So my personality is to shut down and be quiet. I'm not someone who fights back. That's just not how I'm wired. So, I mean, this I happened recently. I had coffee with someone earlier this week, and it started friendly, and very quickly they started attacking me to my face, and I was so shocked. And I was so triggered. My emotions were so high, but I was like, I'm not going to give in to this moment, even though I wanted to punch this person in the face. I was like, stay calm. And what I try to do in those moments is, if I have the extra grace and bandwidth in me, I'm like, what is the heart of the issue they're getting at here?
Yeah.
Don't pay attention to all their triggering statements of just trying to piss you off. Like, what's actually going on here? And then when it's someone I actually have a relationship with, my favorite line to say is, hey, we're on the same side. Because we're family, or we're best friends, or we're lovers, even if we have
Right.
different beliefs and different values. I don't want ever to be us, like me
Yeah.
versus you. I
Right.
want us versus other beliefs. Like,
Sure.
so my favorite defense dropper is, hey, we're on the same side. We're
I
on
like
the same
that.
team.
I like that. And obviously, pragmatically speaking, it shouldn't matter what Donald Trump says in the grand scheme of your life, because what's more important, right, is your family and friends and all that. And I get that. However, it's my job to cover the news. It's my job to talk about the things that Trump might say. And if I got the tube on and I'm watching, it could be any channel, Fox News, CNN, whatever, and I hear Donald Trump say something that is so abundantly disgusting. It could be an attack on a female. It could be an attack on Jewish people when he says, you hate your religion if you're not voting for me, or vote, if you're a Democrat. And it gets me visibly angry. I get angry. And it's my job. So it's not one of those things where I just can't watch the news, right? I'm not one of those people that you could say, well, Brian, just don't watch the news. Just don't follow what Donald Trump is saying. I have to. It's my job. I talk about it on the radio. So how do you recommend me or anybody deal with that?
Yep. Okay, so 2 things. Yes, you have to watch the news, but you don't have to watch it all the time. So we're allowed to limit how much we take in, even when it is our job, and only you know what that line is. So, like, when you feel yourself crossing that line, that's your cue. Turn it off and take a break. Second, you have to have decompressing tools. You have to have something in place, because your heart health literally is on the line. The longevity and quality of your life is on the line. And so if you don't have tools to calm down from an intense angry moment, like the stacking of that anger is costing your quality of life. And so that's why I always tell people, yes, be angry about injustice, be angry about things that matter, but not to a point that it literally takes a detriment on your health, because you deserve a long, happy, healthy life.
I like that. Yeah, I do like that. And maybe sometimes I watch a little bit too much news. It's my job. I have to see what's going on in the world. And that's why I always tell people, if Donald Trump loses in November, it's going to make my job easier. People are like, Brian, what are you going to talk about? Listen, I did radio way before Donald Trump was a politician. I just want Donald Trump to go away, and then I want to talk about more important things, So unfortunately, these days I have to talk about him because he's the front runner of the Republican Party, and he's the guy running against Joe Biden. So I have to. So nothing more would make me more happy if Donald Trump went away. I think it's great advice. Nicole, what do you say we take a few phone calls and a few people can ask you some questions? Are you okay with that?
I would love that.
All right, let's do that. We got about 10 minutes to go here. So if you want to give Nicole a question, some life coaching questions, as I have, the number to call is 702-221-7283. And again, that number, 702-221-7283. Tom is on the line. He has a question for Nicole. Hi, Tom. Go ahead.
Hey, Nicole. Actually, not really a question. I'm going to set it up really briefly here because I know we're short on time, but I relate a lot to what Brian was saying earlier and his frustrations. Kind of set it up. I'm an Uber driver, and I see a lot of people during the course of my career for the last 7 years, and I talk to a lot of people who have different opinions and like to express them to me. As a professional, I don't usually get involved in politics or involved with talking to people, but this one gentleman gets in the car last week, and nice young black gentleman was loading in 47-inch TV, so he sat in the front seat with me and started talking politics, which I wasn't really keen on getting into. But he was saying that it will be the end of this country if Biden is elected, and he was very, very well spoken and articulate, but he wasn't argumentative, which was interesting because a lot of people like to argue. And he wasn't. He was just speaking his mind, and I was listening. But when he said this, what he just said, I'll tell you what he said to me, felt like my head was going to explode. And I couldn't even respond. I was just dumbstruck, and I didn't know what to say or what to do. And then he says, many of these people are reptilian. And when I heard reptilian, I thought, I can't wait for this ride to get done with.
So let's ask Nicole. Let's ask Nicole, what do you do in that situation where Tom is an Uber driver? He has somebody in the front seat that's talking politics. He doesn't want to engage. He doesn't. But Nicole, what advice would you give him in that situation?
Wow, Tom. Every personality is different. So if that was me driving, I'd probably be like biting my tongue, so excited to like drop this person off. Something else I would probably do in that situation is I would try to compliment on the good I can compliment. Like you just said, like, I love how articulate you are without being argumentative. And you're slowly shifting away from the center topic of politics to how you communicate. And then so you're kind of pivoting the discussion ever so slightly away, and it makes you actually in charge of the conversation at that point. And so I would pivot like that. And then the third thing I would maybe say is like, hey, I totally get different beliefs and different values. I think that's actually part of what makes this country great. But what I don't love about either party is whenever we try to dehumanize the other, because we're all humans at the end of the day. Like I try to bring that back to the heart of the issue.
I like that. Tom, I like that advice. That's good advice. You should take it.
Yeah,
I will.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Really
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you. 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE. If you would like some life coaching advice, which I just received, which Tom just received, I get triggered by Donald Trump. Let's go to Julian. Julian is next. Hi, Julian. You're on with Nicole. Go right ahead.
Hi, Nicole. I was wondering, what kind of advice would you give to someone like Ashley Biden, who was raped by her father repeatedly?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the call, Julian. So unfortunately, Nicole, I'm glad that Julian called, because that's exactly the type of call that I'm talking about, although I'm not really triggered by that. But when somebody calls in and asks you what is a lie, and he was, I'm not even going to repeat what he said, but basically calling Joe Biden a rapist. Yeah. I guess I'm handling it the right way, but there are people out there that do stuff like that, right? And I guess you can't take those people seriously, right?
Yeah, I think I would say in that moment, like either, hey, I'm not available for this conversation, right? And I just end it and I don't engage. Or I'd say, I'm open for a conversation, but like this is, you're only saying this to incite an angry response or to like be triggering on purpose, that there's nothing productive coming from that. If you want to have a genuine conversation, I'm down, but we have to talk about something else. And it's just like speaking, it's just naming what they're doing. They're just trying to trigger, they're just trying to get a big reaction. They don't care about a conversation. And so, why would I spend any energy trying to converse when you're just trying to incite an angry response? So, I'll just say, hey, happy to chat. When you're able
Yeah.
to talk about a topic we can actually have a conversation on.
Yeah. And you know, there are people out there that don't want advice. There are people out there that just want to trigger people. There are people out there that don't have their facts. Like I don't even think some people that don't know me well don't realize this about me. I'd rather have a conversation with somebody that I disagree with. I would rather, now I'm not talking about somebody that, I'd be in a relationship with. It would be nice to align with the same values that I have, somebody that I spend time with, but at the same time, on the radio show, I prefer to have conversations with people that I disagree with. But I don't want conversations with people like the last guy who just called in, who obviously doesn't have his facts straight and is just trying to get a reaction, or somebody who might not be very intelligent, who is brainwashed, right? Does that make sense?
And you get to have boundaries like that because it is your radio show, or if you want to have coffee with someone, or it's on your social media page, you get to have boundaries like, hey, and I love that you're making this like publicly known, because if there's new people who don't know you well, like I actually prefer conversations with people I disagree with. My boundary is that we actually have a conversation and you don't say things just to shut the conversation down. As soon as you do that, the conversation is over.
So, it's interesting because I'm kind of proud of myself, because there is a right-wing politician who there's plenty of them that don't want to do this show, but there's one in particular that doesn't want to do this show. And instead of being honest with me, I'll give you, I'm going to give you an example of somebody. He works for a local newspaper here at the Review Journal. He did my show once. I didn't disrespect him, even though I disagree with everything he stands for. We had a good hour-long debate on abortion and a lot of other issues. Right-wing evangelical, don't think he's a good journalist, whatever, but I respected him. And I asked him to come back on. And instead of saying, no, I really don't want to come back on because I don't like your beliefs, or, he says, well, life is crazy right now, so I just don't think I have the time. And then he goes on other right-wing shows, right? And and it's hard to respect people like that, right? It's hard to respect people like that will dodge your show. If they don't want to come on, that's fine. They don't have to, but just don't lie to me. I get frustrated with that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I tend to be a very gracious person. Like maybe that's the best he can communicate, is just like, because I thought you were going to say he was going to insult you and like hear the word, but he graciously declined, not in the way that you preferred, which is, hey, I don't think I'm a good fit for your show. Thank you so much. It was like, hey, things are busy. I can't make it. But he actually answered you, which is no. So we can either get mad over the technical words he used, but I think he was actually quite gracious. I was not expecting that when you said that. I totally thought he was going to come after you.
Probably more gracious than most. You're right about that. I just get upset at the fact that why can't somebody just be honest with me, or say no, thank you. That's all. Just say no, thank you.
Just so you know, for me, Brian, I would probably respond the way he did than me just saying no, thank you. No, thank you feels so cold, and and I'm sure he is busy. And I'd rather just say, oh, I'm so busy, things are crazy, than for me, no, thank you seems crueler. So I think something I've learned in life coaching is we can fall into this trap of demanding perfection from the other person. Like, why didn't they perfectly turn me down? Why didn't they perfectly be gracious versus, I got the answer, which is no, didn't love the way they said it, but I'm grateful that I got an answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. You probably should have told me that months ago. I should have asked you months ago.
We're going to do these sessions regularly, Brian.
Yes, I appreciate it. This has been productive. That is for sure. Nicole, you are the best. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to take your advice. It's very good advice moving forward. I still hope that Donald Trump doesn't win in November. That'll solve some of my problems. But Nicole, I appreciate your advice. Always appreciate you coming on. We'll catch up with you next week, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend, you and your family, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you, Brian. You were wonderful. See you next week.
Thanks, Nicole. You're the best. Nicole Mitchell, everybody. Life coach. I got a little life coaching for free today. Trust me, I needed it. She gives some really good advice, by the way. I need to talk to her more often. She might have to me, though. I don't know. But Nicole Mitchell, everybody. For those of you that want to subscribe to my YouTube page, I highly recommend you do so. It's at PTL Radio Show. Again, at PTL Radio Show if you want to subscribe to my YouTube page. My website is ptlradio.com. If you'd like to sign up for our newsletter there and give out your information, we'd appreciate that. The Occupy Democrats page, it's only $5 a month. I appreciate all of you tuning in. We'll be back at it. The residential liberal of PTL, Chris Wynn, will be in on Monday, so we look forward to that and appreciate all the phone calls. And yes, the hush money Stormy Daniels case starts on Monday. My thanks also to the Mooch, Anthony Scaramucci, for joining us. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a good day, everybody.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran, veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
I'm Eva Chase,
Check.
candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, former Lieutenant Governor candidate, Progressive Independent Democrat, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, fully transitioned transgender woman. I support women's
Jay
rights
Cornegay has
and
the check for you
veterans
guys.
and unions and other progressive ideas. Please donate to my campaign on Spot Fund and follow me on Facebook, Instagram,
You're a little
TikTok,
hot.
and
You're
X.
a little hot.
Stay progressive, everybody.
But give me Marco first.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza
Okay,
place
hold
that
on.
reminds
Don't
you of
touch anything,
Brooklyn?
T.
That
Turn up
true blue
Marco.
New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road.